Good morning, everyone. Hello. How's everybody doing? What's up, Arian and Frank? I hope I'm saying that right. Ariana, Sean, Sam Peterson, Jack Watson, Melancholy Megan. I love that name. That's super cool. It's Melancholy Megan is kind of like Voodoo Val. I like that. Well, welcome in, everybody. As I said, my name is Voodoo Val, and I'm going to be your host for the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge again. I hope everyone can see me and hear me clearly, because this morning I'm going to jump into how you folks can join me for the challenge. I'm going to go over all of the starter files I've prepared for you, how you can get involved and participate with me, where you can post your work to share, who we have on Adobe Live for the rest of the day, and all of that good stuff. Thanks. Awesome. You're very welcome, Melancholy Megan. Ron, welcome in. It's good to see you. Hello, Ari. Hello, JD. Welcome back. Welcome back, Avila. Ferry, hello. Emma, Susan, Jennifer. It's good to see all of you folks bright and early on this Tuesday morning. So, one of the things that I would like to show you folks before we jump into all of the awesome fun in Photoshop is where you guys can see the challenge, what we're going to be working on, and how you can get the starter files and where you can return if you need to check out this video later. Because I am going to run through the challenge today, but for those of you who maybe need a little more time than the 30 minutes that we have for today, I want to make sure that you know where to get the video, where to come back and review things. Also, a quick reminder, if you are over on the YouTube page right now and you're wondering where are all these people Voodoo Val is greeting, please head over to behance.net/live, because that is the chat that I'm looking at over on Behance. That is where you can get all of the helpful resource links that I'm going to go over today, and it's also where you can register for the challenge and all that good stuff. I see Sam is posting the link for registering right now, so definitely head over there. Voodoo Val, that's an awesome name. Thank you, Ari, and I appreciate it. I think your name's pretty awesome too. Welcome in, Monica. It's good to see you. Everyone's filing in for class. This is so cool. All right, so I'm gonna pop over to the landing page over here, and you can find this page as well if you go to behance.net/challenge/Photoshop. You will know that you are in the proper place when you look at the dates here to make sure that we're in the right area. And also, the reason why I draw attention to this every time to make sure you check the dates is because even though we have a current Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge going on right now, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll notice that there are tons of other Daily Creative Challenges lined up for you that you can return to and go through all of these as well, and they have their own dates of when they aired, and all of their archived videos attached, and you can kind of cycle through here and you can still get all the starter files, you can still get you know, all the videos, everything, but if you go to these pages, then you'll notice that it has a different date listed here, and you come to a page just like the main landing page for today's. So definitely check that out. Make sure that when you go to the landing page for this challenge, that you do see the correct date so that you're not downloading the incorrect files and wondering, what the heck am I doing? This does not look anything like what Val is working on today. Another thing is all of our challenges are themed around superheroes and supervillains. Maybe that's a little self-indulgent for me. I always love to theme these things around things that I love. You guys know I love me a good villain. The heroes are cool too, but I've been going through all of the supervillain themed things. All of you folks are welcome to join in that theme. If you are more of a Jedi than a Sith, you guys can work on projects themed around the good guys if you want. But beware, because the dark side is strong with me. You can also make sure that you get all the challenges and everything, because they do have assets included in those files that kind of go along with our theme, which is fun. I tried to make them pretty neutral so that you can go either way with them. And if you're really not fond of the superhero, supervillain kind of thing, that's totally fine. You can kind of do your own stuff just using these techniques if you like. It's really up to your own interpretation, because these are your classes to help you get better and help you kind of improve your skill and develop your trade. So it's up to you to decide what you'd like to do with the knowledge that I give to you. All right, so we have done a handful of awesome challenges thus far. We created a mood board centered around our themes to help us get started. We did an emblem design for a superhero or supervillain. We mocked up an emblem on an iconic piece of clothing for a hero or villain, which was fun. We did a photo compositing challenge where we took that clothing and mocked it up onto a portrait of a person and made them look like either a hero or a villain. Yesterday we did an onomatopoeia challenge where we made like a wham or a pow from like a comic book into brushes and patterns, which was cool. And today we're going to be working with displacement maps. We're going to create a calling card for a hero or villain, and we're going to use displacement maps, blending modes, and a custom brush that I have created for you folks to make it look as if that calling card or that symbol has been spray painted onto the side of a brick wall, which I'm really excited about. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. The actual description just says design the calling card for a superhero or supervillain using Adobe Capture. When you're finished, try placing your calling card onto a brick wall using Photoshop. So Adobe Capture is pretty cool because you can actually draw and sketch things out on like a piece of paper or what have you, and you can add it to your Photoshop libraries, and you can then pull it into your Photoshop files, which is a lot of fun. I have already created my sketch and everything, but I encourage all of you folks to dive into Adobe Capture. It is a free app that you can get on your mobile devices, and check it out. I think I'm also going to, this is not the last time, this is not the last time we're going to see Adobe Capture in these challenges too. Later on this week, we're actually going to get into making some patterns and things, so we're not just going to be touching on like the sketching part. However, I have actually included the standard emblem for heroes and villains sketches that I have been including just in case you folks at home don't have phones, or you don't have the ability to get Adobe Capture, or you don't want to download it, or you'd like to do it later and follow along with the displacement map technique that we're going to be using today. So when you hit this Get Started button, it's going to pull up challenge number 6 over on Dropbox, and you can get the starter file, and you can also get the noise brush that I've made for you. And then I'm going to pull up my Photoshop, and we're going to dive into it. You guys ready? Definitely have an Anakin Darth vibe, so conflicted between good and bad. That's awesome. That's awesome. The standard one is normal. Did you know that Chewbacca is married? Yes, and I think he's like around 200 years old as well. Are you quizzing me on Star Wars? We don't have enough time for this, Noor. You know that I'm gonna take that and run with it. We'll be here all day, folks. Okay, so I have the little spiel from the challenge in here, but I've also added a little extra thing because I did include that brush. It says try adding a spray paint effect using Val's noise brush. So we are going to do that. And I'm gonna unhide my little info section here. And I'm going to unhide the wall image that I have prepared for you folks. Now, I've got this from a photographer named Dave Webb on Unsplash, and I've put his little tag in here, and I've also put his link to this photo so that you folks can follow that link and go check out his other work, give him a follow and a shout out, let him know we appreciate his photos and everything. It's a free to download picture, as are many of his other pieces. So if you folks are looking for some other kind of wall texture, you can definitely find it there. Or you can go to Adobe Stock or stock.adobe.com, and you guys can find some images of your own. But I definitely wanted to make sure that I added a photo in here for you to use for this. So I've got my handy dandy sketches here that I've made. You guys have probably seen these before because I wanted to make sure I included an asset to use and everything, just in case you're all following along and don't want to create something from scratch while you're watching this brief tutorial. I am going to do a displacement map to make these look like they are embedded onto the wall or spray painted onto the wall. We're going to add some cool textures, we're going to do some fun things with brushes, and we're going to change all of the colors and stuff. I'm going to go with red and green for heroes and villains because I think that that would be cool, and you guys can choose whatever kind of colors you want. You guys can use your own emblems that you have designed if you were here for the previous challenges, or you can sketch something totally new and totally unrelated. It's really up to you what you do. So I'm going to select here, I'm going to grab my little villainous thing here. I've selected it. I'm going to say Control J to duplicate it. And then I'm going to hide the main sketches thing here because I'm just going to work with this guy for now. I'm going to put him, I don't know why it's a him, maybe it's a her, I'm not sure. I typically assign strange human traits to items I'm working with in Photoshop. It's a habit of mine. I'm gonna place him right here, and just so that we have kind of an overlap over the brick and the textured cement here, because the displacement map is going to make things look different depending on what texture it's over, which is really fun. Christmas red and green. Yeah, you know, you have a point. Maybe we'll do like red and purple. All right, so I'm gonna hit enter. I'm going to double click this layer to open up my layer styles panel, and I am going to add a color overlay. I'm going to leave it as this this is a pretty bright red, and I think that I'm going to keep that. Say OK, and then I'm going to press OK yet again. And something I do, because I know I'm not going to change the color of this at all, is I will just right click after I change its color and rasterize it. You may not like to do this because technically now I'm not working destructively, but when I start adding textures and I start adding layer styles and everything to this, I'm not going to get the full extent of those textures so long as that is like a filter over the top of my element here. I'd like it just to be a straight up red symbol, so that anything that I do to it shows up very well. So I've got my red here. I'm going to also throw this onto like a multiply layer, which is cool. I'm sure many of you have used some of the blending modes, and yeah, you can see the image of the wall through the piece, and I guess technically you could say, yeah, now this symbol is drawn onto the wall, but we want to take this a step further. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to hide my symbol. I'm going to jump in here to my wall folder. I'm going to bring that wall out of the group. And I'm going to make a displacement map real quick because we're going to add even more texture to this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say Control U. That opens up my hue and saturation panel. And I'm going to crank the saturation down. This is one method of making a image look grayscale. There's a lot of different ways you could do this. You could go into adjustments, and you could go into grayscale. I believe it is in here. You can do black and white if you prefer, which works. It really is up to you how you do it. It's pretty quick just to say, Control U and drop that saturation down, but some people have different preferences. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my levels panel. So I'm going to say Control L and open levels. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to crank these midtones up a little bit, and I'm going to bring the highlights down as well, because what I'm trying to do is get the most dramatic texture and contrast of black and white on this file that I possibly can, because I want basically what's going to happen is I'm going to load this displacement map into the distort filter, when I go up to my filters and add the displacement map, and all of those different grayscale colors, all the contrast between the black and white is going to push and pull my symbol that I've got in different directions. So I want it to be as dramatic as I possibly can get it without everything being lost and looking a little awkward. So I think that's pretty good. I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to save this as a new file real quick. So I'm going to say Control-Shift-S, and it opens up my little panel over here that asks me if I want to save it in the cloud or save it on my computer, which I am going to save on my computer. And I'm going to call this Displacement Map. And I'm going to say okay. I'm saving this as a PSD file, a Photoshop file. I'm not saving it as a JPEG. I'm not saving it as a PNG. I'm saving it as this right here. So now I have my wall created, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this file that I'm working on one more time under a different name, because I'd like to have my displacement map as a separate file. So I'm going to call this calling card. And because I forgot to duplicate my wall, I'm just going to Control Z and I'm going to back out here. So now I have my original wall back the way it was, but then I also have a separate file that's just that black and white wall, which I'm going to load up real quick after I add just a little bit of atmosphere. So I have my symbol, which I'm going to unhide. I've got my wall. I'm going to make a new layer between the wall and the symbol with Control-Shift-N, and I'm going to call this shadow. I'm going to grab my paint bucket real quick and turn my color to black. I'm going to drop my paint in there, change this to a multiply, and I'm going to grab my eraser tool right quick. And I'm going to erase with a large soft round brush in the center here, just to kind of add almost like there's like a spotlight on that wall and make it look a little more dramatic. It just kind of adds like a little bit of interesting vibe to it to make it look maybe a little bit sinister. I kind of like that. Kind of makes like a vignette around the edges there. And now I'm going to do the displacement map. So I've got my symbol layer selected now. I'm going to come up to Filter. I'm going to go to Distort and Displace. And I'm going to leave the settings as is. You can mess with the settings if you want. You can change the horizontal and vertical scale. You can tile the texture depending on the size of it and the size of the file or the element that you are displacing, or you can just stretch to fit. I'm going to leave it on stretch to fit. And I'm going to keep repeat edge pixels. And I'm going to say OK. And then it's going to ask me to update my my file that I'm using for that. So I'm going to hit the displacement map file I made. I'm going to say OK, and then you can see it changes. Boom. Now, some of you may add the displacement map for the image that you're using and find, you know what, I don't really like how soft the displacement map has been applied. I think it needs a little more texture. So you can come up. I'm just going to save my file, autosave real quick with Control-S. Save your work, folks. Save your work. I just remembered that. It's always a good idea to memorize that Control-S hotkey so that you never forget. I am going to come up to Filter again, and you'll notice that after you apply a filter, there's this little thing at the top of the filters panel when you reopen it that will allow you to apply the same filter that you just applied another time. You can also do Alt-Control-F, which is the shortcut command for that, and what it will do if I say Alt-Control-F is it will just apply it again. So technically I could keep hitting this and it would keep applying that map over and over and over again. I think it really only needs one or two applications. I think that looks actually pretty darn cool. And that works for me. You may want to use it a little more times. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my brush and my eraser and kind of make this look even cooler. So the thing with this is that, and we are running out of time, so I might not do a second one. I might actually crop this. I'm going to drag this shadow over just a little bit and crop this just so that we have the focus of the entire piece here just centered around this little calling card. I think that actually looks pretty darn cool, to be perfectly honest. So I've got my thing here, and it looks neat, but it also kind of just looks like there's like a weird textury something on this wall, and I want to make this look like spray paint. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my eraser tool, hitting E on the keyboard, and I do have like a soft round brush selected here, and I'm going to come around the edges of this, and I am going to, if I can, oops, not on my shadow layer, on this layer, and I'm going to lightly kind of thin some of these areas because I want to make this look as if there are places where there's a little more noise attached to it, but also places where things are a little smooth, and kind of make this appear as if it has been created by a can of spray paint. Now I'm using a stylus, but I'm also going to I'm just going to grab my mouse real quick and just drag with my mouse as well to show you that because this isn't really a precise science here, and this is something that doesn't have to be perfect, using a mouse does actually work. So I'm just thinning some places, because I think it looks neat. And then I'm going to add even more noise with the brush that I supplied to you folks. So that looks kind of cool. It kind of gives like a little skinny wedge there to make it seem like somebody just kind of slashed through it with a spray paint can. Maybe thin it out just a little more, maybe a little more here. Boom. That looks pretty cool, I think. And then I'm going to grab my brush. So the brush, I might actually also grab some red. Let's see, let me go. There we go. I'm going to grab my brush that I've supplied to you guys that you will all have if you downloaded the files. So I'm going to right click on here. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom because that's where your new brushes will come into play if you have just grabbed a new brush, a new ABR file. To open that ABR file, by the way, if you have your Photoshop open, all you have to do is double click it, and it should auto load into your Photoshop. You may not see anything happen, so check your brushes panel after you do that, just in case, because what you don't want to do is keep double clicking it. Why isn't something happening? Why isn't something happening? And then you realize that you've loaded that same brush into your Photoshop like 5 different times, which is kind of cluttery and uncomfortable. So check your brushes panel. If your computer does not auto open that ABR file as a brush in Photoshop immediately, you may just have to select Photoshop from a list of programs to tell your computer, yes, please open ABR files with Photoshop. So I'm going to select this noise brush, and I'm going to make my cursor a little larger. I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to snag this red, and I'm going to start spray painting areas here. I'm going to get like the tail end of this. I'm going to add a little right there. There we go. I'm going to bring some up around the edge of this, and then on this area too where it seems like it's a little thicker. So I'm kind of trying to steer away from those places I smoothed out, you know, because when it comes to spray paint, when you like drag that can across a wall, it's a lot smoother, but the farther you get away, the less precise those lines are, and the more noise and texture that you get with that paint. So that's kind of what I am attempting to do here, is just to make it look a little more realistic. And then what you could also do is you could add some maybe places around where there's like a little dripping of like, you know, little splatters of paint. That would be cool. You could even bring the brush down a little bit and make it look as if this is like bleeding some paint, which would be neat. So it's really up to you how you take things from here. I think that this looks pretty darn neat, and I can't wait to see what you folks kind of create with this. But that is how I would make something look as if it is spray painted on the wall. Yes, you got it, Greg. Any drips? Absolutely. All I did really, I did use the textury brush for this. And I held shift and drug my brush down just to give it some drips. You could even use a more precise brush. I'm actually just going to choose from the default brushes so that everyone knows that they have these brushes for sure. Maybe this soft round pressure size brush, because this is kind of a fun one, as you can see. And I can, yeah, I can come in here and I can, yeah, there we go. Get some more precise things going with these drips. It kind of looks cool to add a drip into kind of the textury areas that I did. And I think this looks neat. So there you have it, folks. That is how I would make something look like it's spray painted on a wall. I think it turned out pretty good. Unfortunately, this is all the time I have for today. So thank you very much for joining me. You are all a pleasure to hang out with and a joy to speak with. And I can't wait to see you all tomorrow and for another challenge. All right, folks. So thank you all, and I will see you later. Adios.